me share my screen. Yeah. So if we talk about query folding, okay. So suppose uh, we are doing some transformation. So see, if we take this unpivot challenges this table, into this table I have done some transformation. Okay, so these are the transformation that I have done it. Okay, to understand better the query folding, let take any query that are using a data source that accept query. Okay, what I mean to say, that if you take data source, like if we take any data source like SQL or MySQL, you take SQL Server, you take Azure SQL, you take Oracle, you take Google BigQuery, you take Redshift. Yeah, these are the database. Okay, you take SAP HANA. Okay, these are the database uh, which store data, and if you want to access data or if you want to read data, like suppose into this database, suppose in SQL Server you have a database and you have a table. Okay, you have a database and you have a table. Okay, and let me have that data. So suppose I will going to take this data only, the unpivot data. Where is that? Here it is. So I have this data, or suppose we have this data. So I have employee ID and their attendance status. Let me copy, go back to the bottom. So I have this data. Okay, so I have employee ID, I have days and attendance status, whether they were present or absent. This data is there, right? Into this table is present in your SQL Server database. So what you can do, you can use any tool, intermediate tool like SSMS. You know, this is my SSMS tool. Sorry. So this is my SSMS tool. What is the purpose of SSMS tool? So SSMS stands for SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, what is purpose of this tool? This tool, let me explain you from this uh, graph. Where is my database? Here it is. So suppose we have SQL database. Okay, this is SQL Server. So SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server database. So this is the database, and this table, this data, you know, suppose I have data into this table. This table, employee table, is present into this database. So I have employee underscore attendance table. This employee attendance table is present into this database. Now, if you want to interact with this database, what you can do, you have to use some tool. Okay, you have to use some tool. Okay, so if you want to interact, through this database. If you want that, you should able to pass some instruction to this database. To pass instruction to this database, what you have to do, you have to use some tool. So if I want that, I should able to pass some instruction to this database and get some output. For that, what I have to do, I have to use some tool. I need to use some tool. So what I have to do, I have to use some tool. Okay, and that tool is SSMS. Okay, so you can pass instruction and you can receive output. Okay, you can receive some output. Okay, so you can receive some output. So when you pass some instruction, these instruction need to be passed using language, and that language is called SQL. That language is called SQL, that is stand for structure query language. Yeah, to pass some instruction, you need to use SQL. Now, so all this database that I already named, it here, all this database, except, SQL query or SQL like query. So all this database, that I mention it here, all this database will going to accept SQL query or SQL like query. All this database. Like, if I have to, read data from this table, a simple SQL statement, I'm just explaining you. Select star from and name of the table. What is the name of the table? Name of the table is employee attendance tables. This is the name of the table. A simple query of SQL is like this. When I will teach SQL, I will going to explain, how to write SQL query. So if you want to read data from any of the table, your query should start with this select clause. I want to bring all the column from this table, like I need employee ID, day, and attendance, and that's why I'm using a star. And then I need to write from clause, and from which table I want to read data, so I should give the name of the table. So from this employee attendance table, I want to read all the column data. Give me the complete data, all the column, all the rows from employee attendance table. And in the output, in the SSMS, we'll see output like this. Okay, okay. So all these database like MySQL, SQL Server, Azure SQL, Oracle, Google BigQuery, Redshift, SAP HANA, all this database will going to accept query or SQL like query where you will write, and accordingly it will going to give you the output. So if you want to send some instruction to your database, you need to write query, and these sometimes these are called native query, SQL query, or call native query. In Power Query term, I will call it native query. So this similar query Power Query generate, and this similar query is called native query in Power Query. In Okay, this query is called native query in Power Query. So Power Query generate their own SQL query or SQL like query, I will say, and that particular query is called native query. Okay, Now, somebody raised some hand. Who? Yeah, Priyanshu, you have a question? Yes, yes. I will take up your questions later. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. So this is my native query. This native query, we call in Power Query, we call it native query. Now, so this data, if you see, there is one table. What is data? I suppose that data is. Suppose this data is there. Let me see that. What is the data source? If I click it here, I will say, yeah, this is the data source. So if you see my data source, this is data source. I am using, local MS SQL local DB. This is a server name. This server is present on my laptop. Okay, and from this SQL database, I am just getting some data. So what is the data that I am getting? This is the data. I am getting data from a view. The name of the view is V state province country region. So understand, as of now, consider this as a table. So from this table, I have state province ID, I have a state province code, is only a state province flag. Okay, I have territory ID, I have a country region code and country region name. So these are the column, from this V state province country table. From this table, I am getting all this data. Okay. Now, what I will do, I will do some transformations. What is the transformation? Suppose I don't want this, state province code column. So I will remove this column. Now, so I've done one transformation in which I remove the state province column. I will do some other transformation like, I want to, you know, replace Nova Scotia that is present into this table with some other value. So what I can do, let me go to the home tab. Under this, I have option to replace value. I will replace Nova Scotia with Nova underscore Scotia. Let me click OK. So you will find that all the transformation, Nova Scotias are replaced by Nova underscore Scotia. So these are the transformation that I have done it. Let me remove other column that I don't need, territory ID. So I will remove, or let me, remove duplicate from this column. So I removed duplicate from my this column. Finally, I have this data. Now, so what are the transformation that I have done it? First, I connected with the data source. This is my data source. And whenever we connect data source, Power Query will going to generate, a M code for us. Okay, this M code is called mashup code. Okay, then when I connect to this data, into this server, this server has one of the database name, and the name of the database is AdventureWorks 2012. Inside this database, I am getting data from this view. The name of the view is V state province country region view. This is present inside person schema. Okay, then what I have done, I have this data. Okay, from this data, on the top of this data, I have done, my transformation that I removed my column. So this is one transformation that I have done it. Okay, for this also, Power Query has generated M code for us. So you are doing any of the transformation, Power Query will going to generate M code for us. So once the column has been removed, a state province column has been removed. On the top of this data, that data have, if you see, I have this data, there is more than 100, more than, like if you see, there is 181 rows. 181 rows, and have six columns. So if you see one column, two column, three column, four column, five column, and I have six column and I have 181 rows. These are there, right? What I have done it, I gone to I gone to this state province name column, and into this what I have done it, I replace this value, Nova Scotia with Nova underscore Scotia. I replace my value. So this is the other transformation, in which column I have done it. I have done into my state province name column, into this column. Okay. So this is a transformation that I have done it. Okay. Now on the top of this data, what I have done it, I removed duplicate from territory ID column, and finally I have this data. So whenever we are doing any transformation from getting data from source to navigation to remove column to replace value to remove duplicate, for all this transformation Power Query will going to generate M code. Okay, where you will able to see all the M code. The M code, all the M code are available in the advanced editor. Now if your database is one of any database that accept any SQL like query, okay, then for that database what will happen, there is one functionality that Power BI have, and that is query folding will going to support it. By default query folding will going to support it. So what is query folding? Let's try to understand. So for each transformation that you are doing, what is happening? First, I will connect to source. Then, I will, bring data from this view. Then, I will remove column. Then on the top of this data, I need to, do other transformation, that is replace value. Once I replace my value, then only remove duplicate, transformation will going to happen. So these transformation are taking place one by one. So like this remove duplicate has to wait for replace value to complete, and then only this transformation will go to take place. Again, replace value has to wait for removed column, and then only this replace transformation will going to take place. So what is happening, in this, all the final transformation, when I start from source to my destination, that is final transformation, what will happen? Like all three different type of transformation is taking place, and each transformation has to wait for their previous transformation to complete. So when suppose you have a big table, and when you are loading, there is lots of transformation. Suppose you have done 15 to 20 transformation, and if there is a big table containing lots of data, then this process will going to take lots of time. Okay, each transformation will going to take up lots of time. Why it will going to take up lot of time? Because there is a two reason. The one reason is data is very big. The second reason is that the memory that Power BI is using to get this transformation done, okay, has limited memory, and that is of 1 GB of data. So 1 GB of memory is available, processing memory is available for Power Query to do all this transformation. Okay, so since we are processing huge data with limited capacity, it will going to take lots of time. So what is the idea? The idea is, whenever you are getting your data from any of this data source that accept query similar to SQL like query, that query is called native query. Then what I will do, for 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 doing all the transformation, I will not going to use Power Query memory. Then which memory? Because I need to do all this transformation. There need to be, some compute engine that will going to, give me all the get done my all this transformation. Okay, because my data is like this, but I don't want this data. If you see, this data have 7 column and 181 rows. But what I need a table final data that should have 6 column and only 10 rows. All other rows should be filtered out. So to do all this cleaning, and to do transformation, I will be going to use the memory of my database. So for compute purpose or for processing purpose, I will going to will use will use will use database capacity. Okay, to database capacity. But these database will not understand M code. These this code are not understood by this database. This database will understand native query. This native query look like similar to SQL query. This database will understand this code, native query, will not understand M code. So what Power Query will do at the backend, it will going to generate M code. How I will going to get to know that whether my Power Query is generating M code or not? Then what you have to do, you have to go to the step, right click and see. See, view native query is not supported means for this transformation the M code has not generated. But if I go here and right click, if you see, I have, view native query. These are active. When you click on this, we'll get to know that these are the query which are similar to, SQL query. So what I'm telling, select, these are the name of the column, give me province, state province id is only province flag, state province name, territory id, country region code, country region name from this table, b staging country region, and this is the name of the schema. So from this table, give me all this column. This is a SQL like query. These query are called native query. So for all the transformation that you are doing, Power Query is generating native query. So if you do like what I have done, I have, replaced some values. So see, replace from a state province code, I replace Nova Scotia with Nova underscore 18 Scotia, and I given, column alias as state province name. Okay, so these are the, native query that, Power Query has generated. What Power Query will do, it will generate, this native query and send this native query to this database. So if I'm importing data from SQL database, that native query will going to send to this SQL database or all these database except native query, and will going to give you the output, will going to give you the output. Okay, so all this processing will happen at a source side. Okay, and your data, this structured data, will appear in the Power Query, and you will have your data. So connecting to the source, navigations, removed column, and replace value, all these four transformation, these will be done using your Power Query native query. For this step, if you go to removed column, if you right click, native query is not supported. Means for this transformation, Power Query has not generated SQL code. So what will happen till here? Power Query, will going to run this native query. Will going to run this native query. Okay, so if I just show you, if I just show you, okay, if I like this SQL will going to run this native query, will going to have this output. On the top of this output, Power Query will use its memory to delete duplicate from territory ID. So till here, it will going to use the memory of your uh, SQL database. But to do this transformation, that is removing duplicate from territory ID column, it will going to use the capacity of the Power BI because it is not supporting native query. Okay, and this is called query folding. I suppose I clear myself. Uh, Om, can you confirm? Siddhant, yeah, guys.